endorphin rush. Yeah, so those are the things I do.
That's fantastic. And again, I guess it's just there's a sort of a theme to finding the balance, and being inspired by things, and being taking the joy from things. So I'm really interested. So how do you take, with your obvious, your increasing passion for climate things, how do you take that into your professional life? So you're demonstrating into your running life. How do you take that into professional life?
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess I've sort of become involved in like the sustainability group at work. Like, so I work in a referral hospital for small animals. So we have like we kind of formed a sustainability group for our vet hospital specifically. Which might be anything from the way that drugs are delivered. They used to all be delivered in kind of throwaway boxes or cardboard boxes. Now they get delivered in crates that again return to the pharmacy and that sort of thing. So anything from that to then I guess I've kind of done some interviews as well within the veterinary kind of sphere, which have involved like me talking a bit about the green runners. So yeah, that kind of thing. I guess I try to sort of bring it in there just in conversations with work colleagues over lunch, which might be as simple as why I'm trying to not I'm trying to eat a vegan diet, or when I bring in baked goods for lab meeting, it'll be something vegan because I'm trying to expand my baking skills in the vegan sphere. So things like that.
Yes, it's taking it through to all aspects of life. That's a really important thing. Greg, I don't know if you want to jump in. I know I have loads more questions, so I can come back to some if you want to take over.
We've got so much. I must apologise because I've only just pressed the record button. So all those wonderful questions I asked you have gone into oblivion. Okay, never mind.
Ask them again if you want. Too much.
We got Claire's questions, you see. Anyway, I'm going to go in up. I like asking some trivia questions, and do apologise in advance.
I won't be very good at these.
If you had a dinner date option, would you prefer to go to dinner with Ed Sheeran or Greta Thunberg?
Greta Thunberg, for sure, yeah.
You got the answer right. Well done. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to meet Greta Thunberg. So that wasn't a catch. Okay, are you a royalist?
Not really. Like, no. I mean, no. I had, I like the Queen. I guess I respected the Queen for kind of a lifetime of service. I thought she did a good, she did what she was there to do well. So I think like a lot of people, I had respect for her, but not really.
Did you ever meet her? Did you meet her?
No, I went to the Hollywood garden party, and she was supposed to be there, but I think she was unwell at the time, so she was somewhere upstairs. Okay. But the other royals were there, so yeah, I never met her.
That's a shame. Okay, I'm going to get serious on you now, and I did forewarn you that there would be some questions on activism, which I think is a key point for the Green Runners, I believe. Not that I want to put you on the spot too much, but I mean, if what level of activism are you comfortable with? I mean, would you glue yourself to a motorway for green reasons?
So I think so you gave me these questions in advance. So it was good to have time to think about it. So if it was just down to me as a person that didn't have the platform that I have in sport currently, then I think yes, I would. I don't like it. It's not something that I think, absolutely, I wouldn't do that and so on. I think that my current situation, I think it would be, I don't think it would be a good thing to do. I don't think it would be, I think it would actually be negative rather than positive in terms of the good that I can do. Because I think that I currently have this platform and whatever it's at 20,000 followers. And I think that that's a much better way to use my voice currently than as a kind of in extreme activism, because I think that what I would do in doing something like that would be just to lose a lot of the people that I are kind of listening, if you see what I mean. So I think that I have a kind of, I think from my point of view, I have a chance of making a much bigger difference with a kind of more moderate approach.
What you're saying is that
Yeah,
there
to
are
answer that, like, I don't have a specific reason to say I wouldn't, because I would do that. I just don't think that's a good idea. That's not my best way to act. Yeah.
So I've got to ask you this question. I asked AJ and Damien this question. It's activism again, unfortunately. If JSO, if you had a really important race, 268 spine, whatever it is, and you get to mile 30, and suddenly a JSO activist jumps out in front of you and throws orange powder all over you and stops the race, how would you feel?
So I think that I would be glad. I hope that I could I guess maybe you could take their t-shirt and continue if the race was allowed to continue. I think that, to be honest, for any race that I can think of, that I've thought of the races that I've run, kind of big races, and I think I would have been I would have seen it as a positive thing that it was getting attention, and that because it matters to me so much. It matters to me more than the race result and so on. And I've tried to think about it in every kind of context, and all the races I can think of, I would be glad, and I would be positive and I would be in support of it.
Right.
I was trying to think of it in the most extreme. So the situation I was thinking of was, what if it was Barkley? What if I had what if I was on the 5th loop of Barkley,
Yes.
and I was, I was about to finish, and that was that moment, this single chance in my lifetime that I was going to finish it, and then somebody got in the way, and that would be pretty hard. I think I'd be pretty sad. But so I don't know what I would feel at that situation, because that, for me, that is the most extreme example that I can give. And that's the same as those athletes that were recently, might have been doing their race that they've been preparing for 4 years for, and then somebody stands in the way, and that's that moment, and it's gone, and they never have that chance again. So that would be pretty hard. I think generally, so I'm getting a bit carried away, but generally I think if kind of extreme activism, the ideal would be if it could kind of be focused on the people that have the power to change things, kind of disrupting them directly, rather than kind of disrupting sort of innocent bystanders that might actually be doing a lot themselves for the kind of climate cause. But that's always going to be difficult. If you kind of getting directly to the kind of the directors of Shell and the people that kind of and the government and the people that have power to make change, if it could directly land on their doorstep rather than on the athletes that have been preparing for years, that would be better. But I know that's
rather than in the middle of your spine race or something like that.
Yeah.
I understand. I think your answer is similar to what Damien and AJ said on that. Okay, so what was I going to add? Okay, let's go on a silly one, shall we? I've got a celebrity question for you. It's come through Damien Hall, and it's from a lady called Nikki Spinks, who I believe you know. She was a very, very top runner, wasn't she? Or something like that. Not park run, serious stuff. Right, is it true you have a penchant for other people's rice pudding?
I might have eaten somebody's rice pudding in the past, yes. I won't mention any names.
I think that was a loaded question, wasn't that? Go on, Claire, you're off.
All right. I'll go back to the sensible, well, not sensible, but the less interesting. Well, my interesting one, actually, the one I've got a couple that I'm really interested in understanding. But let's go first with you talk about obviously Barkley and doing the big international events. And I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on the trade-off between going to those events and the travel, etc., the footprint that's associated with them, but also obviously the exposure that comes with them. So how do you balance that and trade them off?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a really difficult question, because I still don't feel like entirely. So Barkley is the one that I haven't been able to, I wasn't able to go there by any other way than flying. And so basically for other races, what I've done is I've cut back on the amount I race. And the races that I go by public transport. So last year I went to the ETMB by the train. This year I went to the World Trail Championships, and everybody else, like most people, I think almost all the team, flew. And I traveled on my own and traveled by train and bus. And that was in Austria. And I'm going similarly to the Tour de Géant, I'm traveling by train this September. September. So like for the races I can get to, I'm doing that, and I'm trying to kind of use that as a platform to publicize it, you know, through the Green Runners. So the UTMB, they like did a big story on that, and I think it generated quite a lot of coverage and quite a lot of discussion. So I think that was a really positive thing. So that's like kind of the easy stuff to talk about. And the other thing I would say is that I'm traveling less to races, so like I've tried to like really cherry pick the ones I'm going to focus on, and then those are like the important ones, and the rest of the time I'd either run in the UK or just kind of do events closer to home. And they don't have to be races. You can challenge yourself by doing things like, you know, a long run in the hills and coming up with a new kind of, or you know, if what you want is that challenge, you can generate that sometimes at home as well. So that's the kind of easy thing. Barkley, that's a harder thing, because that's something I really still want to do, and I still feel like I have got at least another shot to try and do it. And it means quite a lot to me. And I think it would mean quite a lot to women in general, you know, like if I could finish it. But I'm trying not, like, it's difficult because part of me is like, I'll use that as an excuse to go, and part of me is like, well, that's the wrong, you know, that's the wrong approach, because like what I sort of feel like, well, why should I be any more kind of have any more right to travel than anyone else, if you see what I mean. So I'm kind of torn on it. But I guess overall I would say that I think it's really important to kind of really sort of select and think about really carefully about if you're going to fly particularly to races, and how you get to races. And for me, if I go to Barkley, that will be the one race that I fly to. So I won't apply to Hard Rock, you know, which is another race in the States that I'd love to race. I wouldn't do that in the same year. And yeah, it's still a difficult decision to make, but I think overall, you know, like there was actually quite a lot of discussion afterwards exactly about this point on the Green Runners, and that probably actually, you know, it might be that other people that were going to fly 3 or 4 times that year suddenly thought, well, look, if everybody's talking about it so much, and if they themselves are kind of so concerned about it, then maybe I should fly less as well. So I think, you know, potentially it had that impact as well, and that, you know, made other people think a bit more about their kind of travel footprint as well.
Totally agree. I think having both you and Damien there talking about this issue, and you're right, you're giving a platform, and personally as a woman running, like seeing you out there, and you know, if you can finish it, I think it's a massive inspiration as well. So totally, there is that balance, and as Damien says, it's the, you know, sort of climate hypocrites, but it's not a, you know, you're doing so much on the platform. So I'm very interested as a mother about how you talk to your children about the climate crisis. So having 2 young children, and how do you talk to them about it?
So I think at the moment, I think at what I'm, because they're still quite young. At the moment, I think I guess I'm trying to think, maybe I would be doing this anyway. Like I definitely think we're trying to instill in them like a real appreciation of the natural world, and an understanding that we've got to look after it. You know, like I think everything comes from, ultimately, like I think I was really lucky to have that kind of from a really young age, that kind of develop that love of the outdoors and the kind of natural world. And I think that it underlies the thing. I think that's really important. Just generally, I think that's part about the problem in our societies, that people don't necessarily, you know, the less privileged haven't had that kind of exposure to, and that kind of, they don't have that love for the natural world. So why would you want to protect it if you don't, you know, care, you know, if you don't care for it? And I think that's fair. I think we're probably starting from that point. And obviously they're kind of the changes that we've made in terms of what we eat, much more plant-based and things, so they're getting all that at home as well. So they're like used to eating meals that don't contain meat and don't contain dairy and that sort of thing. So I think that's that. And I think I've only just started talking to my 5-year-old, kind of trying to explain a bit about yeah, a bit about the kind of I guess what's happening. I can't say that I've kind of given kind of the depressing, any kind of depressing details about the kind of the future at this point.
Yeah, you've got to continue to fill them with joy and hope for the future without, but it's finding that balance, isn't it? It's the balance of some realism, but also the positive sort of pressure and that. So I like that answer. Greg?
Yeah, I think you touched on it, Jasmin, but would you just like to go through your Green Runner pledges that you've made? Is that possible? Yeah,
absolutely. So, well, I think I kind of talked a bit about travel. So I guess travel, I said I was, so I think I've covered that really.
When you went to Innsbruck, you had a rather long train journey to Innsbruck, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't possible to do that in one day. So like I got a train down I've got family that live near London, so I got a train, stayed a night with them. So it was nice to see them. And then the next day I got basically got trains. So that was like a 12-hour train kind of travel the next day, which was okay. On the way back, I didn't want to spend another night away from the kids because the trains already made it a bit longer each side. So I actually I arrived back in London at like 8:30 and got an overnight bus at 9:30. So it was like a bit of an epic travel back. But yeah, it was worth it to be home and see the kids.
Okay, so you're doing really well on travel by the sound of it, and well done. So what about your other pledges?
Yeah, so I mean the kit thing, I think that's so I kind of probably I mentioned it a little bit. So I like last year just after we kind of formed the Green Runners, and I'd been thinking about it for a little while, but I think that was like the thing that kind of catalyzed the change was that I moved away from being an ambassador for a company. So I used to kind of run for Innovate, and I left Innovate like very very like positively. It was all very friendly because like they given me a lot of support over the years, and we had very good friends there. But I just said to them, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't feel comfortable. So kind of running for a company that's ultimately, trying to sell a lot of gear, and kind of being used to sort of promote and sell more gear. So just I found that easier in kind of to say to people like I'm reusing this kit that I've had for years. I'm wearing this kit maybe with a hole in it. I don't need new kit. I don't need new shoes until they literally fall apart. Like I find it easier to kind of promote that idea if I'm not wearing new kit every season type thing. Or if I'm not kind of pictured wearing new shoes and that sort of thing. So that was, but I mean, there was other reasons for it as well. I've never felt entirely comfortable kind of about being being celebrated so much by, especially when, as I say, when it's kind of being used to kind of advertise gear as well. So that was my kit thing. So now I'm trying to like reuse kit and like repair it. So more sewing and stuff, which I'm really bad at. Like started repairing the holes in my shoes. So Darren has sent me his kit for shoe repair. So that sort of thing. And
So you're no
yeah,
longer a fashion runner then.
I've never, to be honest, I've never been a fashion runner. Like I'm just, my like a really good outfit, it. But I'm like it's probably disappointment to her when she gets older because like I don't care what I'm wearing, so I'm happy to wear 20-year-old shows or whatever. So that's no problem for me to wear the old stuff and not look fashionable at all. So that was kit. I think I kind of said that, and then the last thing was speaking out. Oh yeah, diet. So diet. So food. Like we're not complete vegans. Or we're not completely plant-based, but we have definitely made a lot of changes, and I think that's kind of like a continuous improvement. Like that's a continuous thing. I think like just with cooking with the whole family and things at the moment, it's not absolute, but then our diet has definitely changed as a group. And we rarely buy kind of meat anymore, like no red meat really. And so we eat a little bit of fish still. But yeah, so it's mainly plant-based, and I drink oat milk, which actually has massively reduced our milk consumption because I drank quite a lot of milk before, and now I actually prefer it in tea anyway, so that's great. So things like that. So we've definitely made steps in the right direction, and we've got a vegetable patch now, like a pretty good vegetable garden. So we grow quite a lot of our own veg in season, and I quite like to make like store things as well, so like chutneys and stuff like that, and jams.
Running as much as you do, you've got to be wary that you get all the nutrients, haven't you? It's one thing becoming vegan, but you've got to ensure that you get the correct nutrients in your diet. Like B12, for example, can be an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think so. Yeah, I was definitely aware of that. I actually had B12 measured like levels checked, and they were like totally fine. But yeah, so I think that's something you have to be really careful of. If you are completely plant-based, and I think you need supplements at that point. Yeah, and the last thing was speaking out. So I guess I'm trying to use the Green Runners and kind of speaking out, and it doesn't come entirely naturally to me. Like I find like social media a little bit stressful. Like I don't find it, like I would, in some ways I'd be happy to just to completely like leave social media altogether, but I think it's like I'm lucky. I feel like I have this platform and I should use it to good. So and that counts both from the climate point of view, but also, you know, like after the Spy Night, it kind of got a lot of messages about being inspirational, especially to young girls and things. So I think that's like another thing that feeds forward to Barclay. And as I say, it's not entirely climate action related, but I still think it's important in terms of kind of inspiring the next generation of young people.
Okay, I'll get 2 quick ones in before I let Claire in again. Poor old Claire, she's waiting. Do you, when you look at runners, do you recognise sort of what you recognise as common traits that you see within runners?
So I think, like, especially the types of running that, I guess, are you referring generally to runners or kind of more to trail and hill runners? Or
Well, I suppose your experience is more with the multi-trail and hill, but I'm kind of aware of the runners that I mix with. For example, maybe they have an element of obsessiveness about them.
yeah, no, I think you're right, and I think there's a number of things, like for hill and trail fellow runners especially, but I think probably applies more generally as well. I think an appreciation of the natural world and like the outdoors is something, and that kind of feeds into why I think the green runners are really well placed to kind of push the message about the need for climate action, because we are already speaking to an audience that care, do you know, that are invested in the outdoors, and that, you know, that'll apply even to road runners, because that's the environment they're running in. But yeah, going back to kind of traits of runners, I think yeah, there's probably a degree of an obsessiveness. It's certainly kind of, I'm a bit obsessed, and certainly like running's a bit of a drug as well. And then I think there's like that kind of stubbornness, and I think that as an ultra runner, that is a really useful thing to you, because it allows you to push through the wall when it gets hard. It can also be really negative when you get injured, because it kind of keeps you, you know, makes you keep going even when you need to stop. So those are kind of features, but
Yeah.
just generally, I like, when I started full running, I remember that like feeling of, it felt like I was coming home to a family. Like suddenly I felt like this is the group of people that like really understand me. Like, you know, it felt like, yeah, I felt very much like this was a kind of community that I could kind of be in and feel completely at home and comfortable with. So I think that's specific to especially for the fell running community, but kind of more generally to some extent in runners in general, like that common love of running.
Lovely. Okay, Claire, go on. Off you go.
There is definitely something to be said about running communities, fell running, ultra running, marathon running. There's that real sense of camaraderie, isn't it? Because you're all experiencing pain together.
Yeah.
I was very interested in your comments on social media, and particularly the fact that you are getting out there more now. Have you experienced sort of pushback for your views and the way you speak out about climate from either other runners or on social media?
You know, actually, like much less probably than like I expected to. There are probably, I imagine there's threads and things that I've not like followed. So I don't sit down and kind of search through all things and read everything. But things that have come directly back to me, so like I've tweeted something, or people have tweeted at me, like almost nothing, you know, like really little. So I probably shouldn't be as nervous as I am, because also, like, what does it matter? You know, people are never going to all agree with you anyway. It's just, I think inherently have this kind of desire for everyone to be happy and to please everyone. That's like something that I was like born with, this real need to please everybody, and that's never going to happen if you're gonna speak out about this issue. Then you are really not going to please everybody. So I just need to, you know, that's what I tried to tell myself. But overall, in answer to your question, like really much less kind of negativity than I would have expected, and certainly nothing to kind of justify my nervousness about social media. That's just me.
But that's really good to hear. When you hear some of the stories out there, that's really actually very good to hear. The relay actually that's ongoing at the moment, I think you've done a stage of the running out of time relay. Yes, and I mean that's fantastic, and obviously so many green runners involved in that. So what do you hope it will achieve? And also, just as the next bit of that is, you know, what do you think can be done to, this is the second year it's run, it's a fantastic event. How do you think the reach can be expanded?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a fantastic thing. It was really positive both years I did it. Last year I did quite a lot more of it. I think last year I ran about 30 kilometers, and this year I probably ran about 6 or 7. But it was the first run back after the World Championships, and I was pretty stiff. So it felt like the hill felt quite hard that we did around Arthur's Seat. But like, so I think it's a really positive. Like, this is definitely a positive format of activism. Like it. So I saw it, experienced it visiting schools on the first occasion, and that was like a really, like, it felt really positive. Like the school kids had all kind of done a piece on it, and they had a local paper there, and the school kids all came out to cheer us through. And I thought, like, this is what you want to be doing, like kind of inspiring kind of action in the community. And it's something, I think, that it's like a positive piece of news that newspapers, like local reporters, can pick up on. So I think that's good, and I think the more we can involve young people and schools and kind of community groups as the relay moves through the country, I think that the better that is. That's a really like positive thing. So I think there's we probably could still get more like running clubs involved as it goes down the country. So my kind of feeling is that the Green Runners have had like people all the way through, and probably maybe people would have, like, I think other groups, so for example our Carnethy kind of running club, given enough notice, might have put more people into different stages. So that kind of, yeah, maybe if we could kind of try to work with running groups all the way through the country, and then kind of use that as a way to sort of feed in this kind of the message that we're spreading, and also the kind of message of the Green Runners, to, as we go along through the country through these different running clubs. Maybe that would be something that you could do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very, very good point. Thinking back to the Green Runners specifically, do you have any advice for new Green Runners?
Well, I guess my general advice running wise is always, I guess, for new Green Runners, as in new runners that are, is this new runners that are already runners, and that
New runners to the community, new runners to the community around maybe the pledges and how you approach it, involvement.
I guess my advice would be like, and as I mentioned at the start, I think it's only in like last 3 years that I've really become kind of like started doing something about my, and sort of become more aware of the crisis that we're facing in terms of the climate disaster. I think what I would say is that, like, just start making little steps, like start with little changes, because even like it feels a bit overwhelming, it still feels overwhelming to me, but firstly some sort of action will make you feel better, like, and even if it's just something small, it kind of snowballs. Like, I found that myself. Like, you might say you're just switching to oat milk, but then you'll start saying, well, is there like other kind of substitutes for cheese that I could try? And like, that's just one example, but like, and then it comes to the kit, and I think the more you start thinking about it, do I need this new piece of kit, the more that kind of melds itself into all areas of life, to like the rest of your clothes that you're wearing, and that sort of thing. So I think like I think that it's a kind of continuous process, and I don't think that you should be overwhelmed all of the start. You don't have to be perfect, I guess, is my kind of the point that I'm coming to, is that like just start kind of thinking about it, and living your life being aware of your this kind of pledge that you take to try and be a green runner, and it'll feed into all areas of your life. And I think it kind of, as I say, it kind of snowballs and grows, and that's the way to go. And talk to people about it, talk to people about why you're making changes, and that's going to be ultimately the most important thing, because it'll spread the message.
I love that idea of not letting perfect, sort of not letting perfect be the enemy of good. You get going, take action. Don't expect perfect action, but action is what's needed to happen.
Yeah, because I think people sometimes, like, they'll say, I can't do that because I can't give up all flights. I'm not going to give up all flights to races. But if they think still, well, maybe I'll keep this one flight and everything else I'll get to in a different way, and that already itself is making a massive difference. It's much better if they do that than not do anything at all. So
absolutely,
that's my view on it.
I have one more less serious question. So obviously you mentioned liking oat milk and tea. Damien has obviously is famous for his love of tea. So is tea drinking a prerequisite to be a green runner?
Well, I don't know what Damien did. Damien get asked this question? I think he's like Damien pretends to like sort of disown anybody that doesn't like drinking tea. I don't think you have to. You don't think you have to be a dream runner. But I think it's a very good thing in life in general.
I'd agree with that. Back to you, Greg.
Thank you asked about the carbon footprint of tea, but no, I don't think so.
There's a question coming from in the chat here from Kenny.
Kenny, come on, Kenny. What have you got? Kenny? He's there.
He wants to know if you identify Scottish and run for Scotland in the Commonwealth Games, for example.
I did run for Scotland at some point, like now it's GB, but it used to be like Scotland versus England versus whatever. I ran for Scotland, yeah. So I think I feel most Scottish, like within the UK. I feel most Scottish, even though I was kind of born and brought up in the Peak District, and I love that place. But now I do feel Scottish. So yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you. Okay. I think are you around until 10 past? Is that all right, Jasmin?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Fine, because it's going so well, and there's so many questions that I'd love to ask, and I'm sure Claire as well. And at this point, if there's anyone on the floor there who would like to ask Jasmin a question, please indicate, and then you can come on and ask it. Either we'll read it for you, or you can ask it, but don't feel afraid of coming forward. Okay, Jasmin, a question: if you could travel in time, where would you go, and what would you do?
Oh, I don't know. What do you? That's it. Like, that maybe you should have sent me that question in advance as well, so I could think about the best way I could act. I mean,
is there a race, for example, maybe in the past that you'd like to go back to?
Oh, you see, there's me thinking about how I could change the course of humanity in terms of the crisis we're currently facing. That was me thinking about that. But you know, I mean, the warnings were all there in like decades ago, and nobody, the scientists were saying it decades ago, and nobody took any notice. So it probably wouldn't have helped if I'd gone back in time to say something. No, so your change was to like a race, for example, that I could have done. I guess, like, I mean, it sounded like I honestly I'll probably think of a million answers to this question when I start this conversation. I guess the early days when women started running were pretty, I think, like, just pretty exciting. So, for example, the first fell runner ladies, they took part in races where where they kind of joined in without officially being part of the field, like they went in as a man and then pulled off their coat halfway through. The kind of fantastic first lady pioneering fell runners, one of whom I remember reading about wore kind of long white gloves and as she raced around the Ennerdale horseshoe type thing. But I think those days, like, I can definitely imagine myself like that. That's kind of my thing. I would have definitely been up for doing, racing against the men and proving that the ladies could do it. So that's, I could definitely see myself in those early days when women weren't allowed to race against men, or weren't allowed to race full stop because it was considered too hard, and that they would kind of drop dead halfway through or whatever. So yeah, that would have been kind of fun to be there.
I could see you as a suffragette.
That leads in nicely to a question I have got. You're well known for beating men at ultra runs and things like that. How do you feel about beating men?
I mean, I like it. It's fun. I enjoy it. I would say though that, like, and I've said this several times before, when I'm racing, I'm racing the person that's there. Like, I don't think that much about whether they're a man or a woman, because there's obviously incredible women racers as well. So, like, for something like, so Courtney Dawater recently won Western States by like an incredible margin. Like, she's phenomenal. And like, if I was racing against her on a race course like that, she would like leave me like way behind standing. So it's like I am racing against the person that's there, that I kind of have, like, that I'm nearby, that I'm kind of you know, regardless of whether it's a man or a woman, I'm like trying to do my best. And then and I'm also just racing against myself, so I'm competitive with other people that are around me, but ultimately, like, if I know that I've given it everything and that I've really sort of laid it all out there, it might be that I wasn't like super prepared for the race or whatever it was, but if I've kind of given everything, then I'm happy. Like, so I come back from races and feel like if I give it everything, then that's fine. That's all I could have done, you know. So so
Well,
yeah.
a quick addition to that then. Have you got a sprint finish? I mean, if you're at the end of a 268-mile race and someone pops up on your shoulder, have you got a sprint finish?
I don't know. It's a good question. Could I have sprinted at the end of the spine? I mean, I think I could have gone a bit. I could have gone faster than I was going. I was kind of limping along a bit by that point. But the first time I ran Barkley, I did get lost at the end, and it was came down pretty close to the wire. Even though I thought I was going to have loads of time to kind of get in for the fun run in 40 hours, in the end I was racing back, and I actually ran faster probably in that last half hour than I'd done since the very start of the race. So I think you find this kind of strength that you didn't have until you kind of really on the line and you have no choice.
So what's your average time per mile for over 268 miles?
Well, that's massively dependent on like the terrain you're on, and you know, so I mean, it just like, so Barkley would be super slow. I mean, for people to finish Barkley, you've got what, 60 hours, and it's about 100 miles they estimate, or a bit more. So
Okay.
you're probably only going at like not even 2 miles an hour, assuming you go in the right direction. So that's like super slow. The Sky was obviously faster than that. Well, probably you're going at 3 or 4 miles an hour, probably 4-ish. But then you'd be doing another race where, you know, you're kind of, if you were running just on a flat track, you'd be going way faster. So and there's lots of other things that feed into it as well, aren't there? There's like the weather and the navigation.
You're actually also hunting for objects in some cases, aren't you? You're not just running. You're actually looking for items. Is that right?
Yeah, for the Barkley, you're looking for these books. I think Damien described the race as a giant library or something like that, confusing library. But yeah, so you're searching for these books on Barkley, and then you pull out a page, and that's a proof that you got to the checkpoint, kind of thing. Yeah. So there's lots of other things that feed into it. So it's not really. I think just generally, speed is like less of an issue. Like the pace is so variable anyway. Go on. Sorry.
Okay, Claire.
So, what is your favourite race?
I probably have 3 now. I have 3 in the UK. Like probably that would be the Jura Fell race, the Wasdale Fell race. They're both kind of classic long distance fell races. And then recently as well, the Scottish Islands Peaks race, which is a kind of like massively under kind of valued or unknown race, where you kind of do these, you do it in a team of 5 with 3 sailors and 2 runners. You sail from Oban to Mull, and then the runners run up Ben Moor on Mull, then you sail to Jura, you run over the Paps, you sail to Arran, you run up Goat Felling, then you sail back to Troon. And it's obviously a sailboat, so you're not allowed to use an engine, so the whole weekend is just, you know, wind and leg powered. It's such good fun. It's amazing fun because there's these tide gaps, you know. So if you don't make the tide gap, then you wait for 6 hours to make. There's a couple of places like that, and it's just the combination of the sailing and the running, and you kind of see, you know, these people that are incredible at the sport they do. So yeah, I get a bit carried away when I talk about it because it's such good fun. I think people kind of get converted once they do it, and I can see myself doing that, you know, for as long as I'm able to run the 60 miles, whatever it is that you run over the weekend. But it's a real, it doesn't really even matter that much where you finish at the end of it. It's just such a good laugh. It's really good fun.
It sounds fun, and there's like missing the tide. There's a different kind of cutoff there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A slightly different question that I was thinking of. So if there was one person, if you could sort of think around, you know, whether it's on the political sphere, whether it's, you know, wherever, there's one person who you could change their behaviour or talk sense into them, who would that be? And it's mainly around climate things, I guess, but yeah. Sorry, it's a tough one.
Yeah. I guess like like if we were asking this question, whatever it was, like 5 years ago, then I'd probably have said some Donald Trump, because he had that, so that would be an easy answer. Now it's like America's in a better position now, isn't it? In terms of kind of climate responsibility and things, but that would have definitely made a big difference. So
Yeah.
I'll go with that. I mean, hopefully not, but maybe that would still apply.
Oh, I hope not. But yeah, I think you might be right. And then on a positive note, who was your hero of any sphere, with running, with climate, in any sphere? Who's your hero or heroine?
I am going to say, so I just in general, I've never been one for like having heroes that like I get often asked about kind of people that inspire me, and like there's runners that have definitely inspired me, but like I'm not one to kind of idolize. I was never really like that. I guess if I'm going to say one person that I still have like a huge amount of respect for, it'd be David Attenborough, because I was sort of brought up, I mean, like we were all brought up watching the not documentaries, and it was part of Sunday night with the family. So it's like it's not just because I like really respect the man, and like it's just also because he was part of the childhood. He was part of like that kind of introduction to all those faraway places and these incredible natural worlds, yeah, I think like a lot of people have a lot of respect for him as well. So then I'll say him.
No, I think that's a great choice. And actually, stealing one of Greg's questions, then, who would you prefer for dinner, David Attenborough or Chris Packham?
David Attenborough, yeah.
Yeah. Greg, any more from you?
Right. Okay. Let's have another trivia one, shall we? Another dinner date. I'm afraid we keep offering you all these dinner dates, don't we? Boris Johnson or Tony Blair?
Tony Blair. I'm not. Yeah. Boris Johnson is so, put me off.
I think AJ's answer was he chose Boris Johnson because he said he could sit across the table and flick food at him.
Yeah.
Okay, then a little bit more serious then. The Green Runners are now becoming a charity. I believe they've applied for charitable status. How do you see the future for the Green Runners going forward as a recognised charity? How do you see them going forward? What steps do you think they should take?
So I guess, do you mean like just kind of just in terms of them being a charity, or do you mean kind of like just generally kind of in terms of activism?
I'm thinking of the activism side of it as well. I mean, would you want to see them become a sporting or a running JSO, or would you rather, how do you see the policy, from a policy point of view moving forward?
Yeah. Well, I just kind of give my personal opinion, because I know that there's opinions a bit divided on this, like, and I think that's good. Like, it's really good to have that conversation. My personal feeling is that like I think that the Green Runners like appeal to like a lot of people. Like, I think we have this kind of ability to like to kind of really bring the running community together in a positive movement, and that a lot of people can relate to and feel comfortable with the whole idea of this kind of mantra of everyone can be a green runner. You just need to, and I think that's like a really positive thing. I personally think there's definitely a place for kind of extreme activism, but I don't think that's like I don't think that's the Green Runners niche to do that. Like, that's my personal opinion, because I think you alienate too much of the community to like make that your, if we make the Green Runners that being their thing, then I think you lose like 80-90% of the Green Runners community. So like whilst I support that, I think it's definitely, that's what gets the media like interest, isn't that's what they pay attention to, in terms of like the big one in London had so many people there and there was hardly any coverage of it at all, and then somebody runs across a cricket field and it's all over the front pages. So like I think that kind of more extreme activism it kind of, it definitely gets sort of, it's in the media. Well, it's probably because they're biased, it's biased reporting, and it's kind of shedding a negative, but it gets people talking. But then I think then you also need, on top of that, like that's one stream, it's like raising the issue, but it doesn't, that I don't think that unites people necessarily for a positive mood, because there'll be a lot of people that realize that there's an issue, but they won't necessarily be inspired to do something about it, or they won't feel that that's something that they personally want to campaign for, because I think they need to like understand what the problem is, and they need to kind of be inspired for in a positive way as well. And I think that's where the green runners, that's where our niche is, I think, to kind of do it in a more positive way. So if something like the climate relay, I think that's where it more falls. That's where but like I totally respect that, the fact that other people have other opinions. So some people might say that we should be, you know, tying ourselves to railings or whatever. I think. And it's probably not quite as black and white as that. So like something that literally didn't get in the way, it didn't like kind of like hurt anybody or in any way, I sort of think that I would be more up for doing if it was just me that was going to be affected. But if it was something that's going to kind of impact, you know, other people negatively, and I find that harder to kind of sign off as me as a green runner. So sorry, long answer to your question. Does it kind of make sense to what I was trying to say?
That's very good. Thank you for that. That's very good. Okay, then, just a quick one, and Claire can come back in. Would you prefer to run an ultra or go to the theatre with your partner?
I mean, I'd say I would prefer to run an ultra. Like it depends how recently I'd run an ultra. So like if it was like the week before, then I'd be up for going to the theatre. But you know, if I had a choice, you know, in 6 months you get to go to a, you know, run an ultra or go to the theatre, I'd definitely choose the ultra.
What does your partner think about all this ultra running you do then? I mean, what does he?
He does it as well. So he's running this.
Okay.
He runs, yeah, he's running this race, in this 100-mile race in Italy in a couple of weeks time. He's doing that as well. So it's like our kind of date weekend, you know, away from the kids. So we're just gonna amble around the mountains of Italy and enjoy some scrambling.
That's great. That's a common interest then. Okay, Claire.
Actually, I was going to say Kenny's come back with another question. Kenny, do you want to ask it?
Oh yeah, unmute yourself, Kenny. Unmute yourself. Click your microphone.
Yeah, how's that? Yeah. So a woman called Jamie just took the human powered all Monroe round record from Donny Campbell. Would you be interested, or anybody for the green runners interested in a mountain challenge? I've got something in mind, but
have you? Yeah, you should definitely let me know. Yeah, no, that what she did was incredible. So if you know her, like definitely pass on my congratulations, because that was incredible. The Munros is actually something that I would really like to do and have talked about. At the moment, I feel like my kids are too young, so like I wouldn't want to be away from them for like that length of time, just because essentially kind of I wouldn't get to spend much time with them for like 2 or 3 weeks, isn't it? So but yeah, I think that it's a good idea. I think doing something like that would definitely be up my street, like running a really long way or doing some kind of extreme challenge in the name of the green runners. That's something that I find easier to kind of, yeah, that would be up my street in terms of that would fit with my, yeah, my style of kind of trying to raise awareness for the green runners.
Thank you, Kenny. Great question. Sounds like a great challenge as well. I just have two more sort of fairly light questions, and I'm done. Your children and running. Are your children, you know, I know they're young, but I guess you say your 5-year-old. Is your 5-year-old interested in running? Are you going to encourage it, or? So
she's been to a few park runs. She's I'd say she doesn't seem very competitive at the moment. In fact, she seems to be kind of turned off by any suggestion of competitiveness, except when it comes to Ludo. Then she is very very competitive. But she's naturally she's very good, like at walking. Like when she was 3, we climbed 6 Monroes with her that summer, and she just does it. Like she'll run up a hill. At the moment she doesn't want that. Like, yeah, she's not really interested in that competitive thing at all. But that might change. And like, I just think it's wonderful that she's she's so like naturally able to like and happy to be in the hills and be hiking along. She goes hiking off in the distance, and you know, like she just disappears, so you just have to keep an eye that she doesn't get too far away. But it's nice, yeah, it's really nice.
That's fantastic. That's what you want. And I guess my final question is, what's the achievement that you're most proud of? And that could be anything from running through to climate stuff, or through, you know, what is the thing that you're most proud of? That's a really difficult question.
Yeah, that is a really difficult question. Yeah, I guess, I mean, I don't know if you can say that you're proud of your kids, because really you were just lucky that they arrived, weren't you? So it's not really down to you. But yeah, I guess I think I'm proud of like the fact that I've kind of managed to, I think I'm proud, like, without it being one specific kind of fact, I guess I think you know, this, I guess the spine race was kind of an example of the overall kind of being proud. So it's not I think it's probably not the single running event that I'm most proud of, but as a kind of general overview of what I've tried to achieve, I think that is a good example. Like that kind of that balance between being a mum and being like just doing, you know, having a career, and also kind of running against adversity and sort of trying to beat the men, and also that kind of thing of trying to, I guess, give breastfeeding some publicity and make it more normalize it. All of those things came together, I guess, in the spine. So I think that would be a single event that I think that I was most proud of at that point. But yeah, maybe, and I'm hoping that over time I can kind of make a big enough impact in the kind of climate movement to say that would be the thing. But at the moment I feel like I'm just starting out and doing my best.
Well, I mean, there are a whole load of achievements in there, and actually you and Sophie Power putting the, you know, the women as mothers, as runners, breastfeeding, and, you know, the whole everything for She Runs and all of those things put together. It's, I mean, it's a massive step forward, and it's very impactful. So it's certainly something very proud of. So that's all from me, and I'll hand back to Greg. But thank you. It's been an absolute joy.
Okay, then 2 more questions, and I'll let you all go to bed, because I'm sure you're dying. You know, I could go on all night. Actually, it's been very interesting. Thank you, Jasmin. It's been brilliant. But okay, 2 more. I thought it's a kind of forewarning, this question. Could you think of a question that you would like to have been asked that we haven't? Think of the answer the question. Yeah, that's it. Think of a question you'd like to be asked. Ask it.
No, I'm not going to be able to do this.
And then answer it. Okay, I'll give you, that's a forewarning. But then now, while you're thinking about them, okay. Would you want to be a billionaire?
Would I want to be a billionaire?
Yeah.
I mean, definitely not for me. Like I have no aspirations to have particularly any more. Like definitely, I feel very fortunate in the situation that we're in. I guess it would be nice to have enough money to kind of convert our house to a passive house, which we're currently struggling to find enough money for, but we've got all the plans done and everything. So that, you know, not for me, but for the point of view of how you could use that money, absolutely, yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to dream of, sounds ironic now, I used to dream of going in an aeroplane with suitcases full of peanut butter sandwiches for all the sort of children that were starving, in, you know, like that you'd see on the news round, because I thought that would be like a good way of feeding them. And obviously that's like that's not the way to, but you know, like in some, like to use that money in a kind of more sustainable way to make a big difference. And that would be, I guess that would be focused around trying to I think a billionaire wouldn't be enough, but trying to address inequality around the world, because that's like a big thing that we need to do at the same time as, you know, like changing our whole way of living in terms of the climate crisis. But it's also like our world is incredibly unjust, you know, in terms of equality. So like, and education, you know, like living standards, like healthcare across the world. Yeah, there's so much that you could do, and I think as part of that, obviously, would be a huge part would be trying to make the future much more sustainable, yeah, livable, for people across the world. So yes, that would, so absolutely, yeah, I would love to have that much money to be able to do something good with it. I'd need a lot of good people to tell me how best to spend it. But yeah, I'd be very happy to give it all away, go all away.
Well done indeed. Okay, so have you thought of the question that you'd like to be asked? You're going to ask it, and then you can answer it.
Well, I was answering the last question, so I've not had any time to think. Like, do you want just like completely trivia question, or
Well,
no?
I'll leave it entirely up to you. I was just wondering, there's sure to be something that after the interview you may think, I wish they'd asked me so and so. So this is the opportunity, to ask yourself a question that you wish that you were asked in this interview, and then provide the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm probably going to come up with this question afterwards, though. Still,
Never mind.
I'll give you a bit of trivia first one, and then if I think of anything like good and important. So like an interesting one is that I have no anterior cruciate ligament in my left knee, so this is often an injury that ends the sporting career for footballers and skiers and things. I tore that completely when I was 17, and I never had it repaired, because by the time I got an appointment to see somebody on the big long waiting list, I was kind of doing all the things I was already doing again, and they never repaired it. So it's like it was conservatively managed. So I think in medical spheres, that's like a bit unusual, especially for someone that kind of does fell running and kind of like kind of off-road running. It's a little bit unusual. So that's kind of like my slightly and then the other kind of trivia point would be obviously that I'm half Czech, so I could that's a big part of my heritage that people don't like, a big part of me that people don't really understand. Like I'm bilingual, my kids are bilingual. I kind of grew up half here. I could run for the Czech Republic if I was going to run, as well, with a passport. So there's a kind of a bits of trivia, and then I don't know, maybe Claire, do you have a suggestion for a question?
I have to say, I'm out of questions myself.
That's a cop-out, Jasmin. That's a cop-out.
That's a cop-out.
I think you're entitled to cop out. You've been grilled for the past hour and a quarter, so I think you're absolutely entitled to cop out.
My next question is, what time do you go to bed? Because I think it's probably bedtime, isn't it?
Well, we're an hour later here, and I do actually go to bed quite, like here I've been going to bed with the kids when I put them to bed, because
wow, okay.
Yeah.
So I suppose there's a difference. I mean, if you had an ultra tomorrow, would you get an early night?
I'd try to get an early night, but it's never like you can't make the kids go to bed any earlier than they're going to go to bed. So you just I'd just go to bed with them if I could.
Do you find it difficult to sleep if you've got a big race the following
day? Sometimes, but I think recently I've been so sleep deprived that not really, but yeah. I remember the night before the spine race, my daughter was still like breastfeeding in the middle of the night. I think she like woke up twice that night to breastfeed, and I remember thinking, look, this is my last night of sleep for goodness knows how long, and you've woken me up twice as it is since 10 o'clock.
Yeah, you can say one thing, that's not something that any male runners have to contend.
exactly.
You do them hands down there for sure. Jasmin, thank you so much. It's been really interesting. Wow, yeah, I could go on, but never mind. We'll let you go to bed, and thank you so much. And good luck in your running, and good luck in your green running. And we'll all be tracking you for sure, and what you're doing. And good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye. And I'll say to everybody that might listen, thanks everybody in the Green Runners community, because you definitely inspire me every day. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.